seen much, has been a challenging time. COVID-19, global disruptions, hurricanes, but yet our Prime Minister has still been able to deliver on the vision, and we are marching our way into Vision 2030, a Jamaica where people want to live, raise their children, do business, and as he is adding, retiring. Ladies and gentlemen, our independent Prime Minister, or Prime Minister who lives and breathes the thoughts of prosperity and gives us the vehicles to head to prosperity, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Thank you, thank you. Please be seated. Rochelle, you are such a master of ceremonies. You are, I was with you last night, and you did a wonderful job at moving the ceremony along quite efficiently at the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce's award ceremony. Very, very lovely ceremony, I must say. And again, thank you for mastering the ceremony. Bishop Ricketts, thank you so much for your prayers. Your Member of Parliament, he is a great advocate on your behalf, and indeed he came to sit beside me in Parliament to reinforce the importance of my attendance here, but I suspect he didn't know that Norman Horn had already approached me to inveigle me to attend this event, and they used the fact that I'm from Spanish Town to prick my conscience to encourage me to attend. But I had already decided in my mind that I should attend this event because it is symbolic on many levels and has very deep meaning. I take note of His Worship the Mayor's commitment to changing the name of the road. And I must tell you that I quite understand it. Many years ago, I was at a car march. That was before I was Minister of Education. I was just a Member of Parliament. And a youngster saw me in the car march, and he pulled his mother's arm and pointed at me and said, "But me see a politician there." And the mother, quite embarrassed, came over to me to apologize for her son. Of course, the way in which he said politician, it was almost a bad word. So I looked at him and I said, "Son, no, I'm not a politician. I'm a political practitioner." And he said, "Oh, okay." And he smiled. It is all in the name. And those of us who are from Spanish Town would know that there is a certain connotation, a certain history attached to Featherbed Lane, to lanes in general. The suggestion that this is an informal access way, not yet upgraded to fully being a road or a drive or a boulevard. And therefore, it is important that with this development comes not just with the change in infrastructure, but a change in name that reflects the dignity of the place we intend to create. I'm happy to see that the banking sector is very much involved in housing development once again, and is financing, putting resources behind housing development. It is important because when we talk about housing in Jamaica, the emphasis seems to be wholly and solely on what the NHT is doing, or what the housing agency is doing, or what the UDC is going to do. In other words, whenever we talk about housing, we tend to want to focus heavily on the government's involvement in the housing sector. By, as we say in Jamaica, by right, or in the common practice of housing developments generally, the role of government is usually limited to its policy development, meaning creating the policy framework for which the private sector can find the right ways to articulate, to find its legs. And so we have created a general policy framework for housing in Jamaica. There is still, however, need for entities like the NHD, the HAJ, and the UDC coming on board now to actually be developers, bringing the finance, bringing the technical, architectural engineering, acquiring the land, and then actually hiring contractors to build. And we are doing that now. We have targeted 70,000 houses. The NHT has 42,000 houses of that. The HAJ has 15,000 houses of that to build. But it can't be only the government that should build. Housing can be provided effectively, affordably, and at high standards by the private sector. And I want to use this project as an example of a private sector project that will provide affordable housing. The view has been that much of the effort of the private sector is concentrated in the high-rise apartments in Kingston. And that has been largely true. Most of the effort of the private sector is represented in those lovely buildings that you see going up all around Kingston and St. Andrew, in Mandeville, in St. Anne. Some we see in St. James. But that can't be the only effort of the private sector. We want to see the private sector operating in Spanish Town, in Maypen. We want to see private sector operating in St. Thomas in building out houses. So let me use this project, therefore, as an example of what an enlightened private sector housing thrust could look like. So that means, therefore, commendations to Altru Homes. That's the name of the developers, a company under the umbrella of ARC, led by Norman Horn and his team. Now, today we turn soil for 221 new homes on 36 acres of land situated at formerly Featherbed Lane, now soon to be Featherbed Drive. We want to give it another, what we call it, Featherbed. We could call it the Featherbed Boulevard, maybe. Sounds nicer, doesn't it? You could find another name for it, elegant, you know. But it's good. I like Featherbed Boulevard, yes. This is a serious investment. It answers a question Jamaican families ask every day. Where can I find well-built homes in a good location at a reasonable price that is within my reach? Now, I don't have anything in my script about the prices. So, Norman, I didn't hear you say anything about the prices either. But I am expecting that these will be affordable homes, right? I see a strong nod from the chairman of the art group that yes, the houses will be affordable. Teachers ask this question, nurses are asking it, civil servants, police officers, and many young professionals eager to own their own homes. Of course, small business owners as well, they're asking this question, where can we find homes? They work hard, they save, they make sacrifices, and like all of us, they want to live in dignity. They want to look at their home. There was a lovely picture displayed there of a modern design. And by the way, you know, sometimes you can look at some of the houses being built, and what you see is the intention to build a strong home, a home that can withstand the elements and the weather. But sometimes it's not well designed. Sometimes the design looks very cluttered. Sometimes the design doesn't account for the climate in which we live. Sometimes the design is not efficient at all. But still, it shows the intention to build something strong. What I like about the designs that I'm seeing now is that the developers are not only looking to put up a little box, they are looking to give the design some appeal. In other words, there is now greater attention to aesthetics. And from what I've seen with the design of this housing scheme, it is very much aesthetically appealing. And that's very important, because we don't want to create a concrete jungle. The idea is not to replace a zinc and board jungle with a concrete and steel jungle. The idea is to make spaces where we feel good in living. And we notice as you go across Jamaica that sometimes people just want to build, they don't pay attention to design and aesthetics. They don't try to use new materials that are coming in. They're not taking into consideration how to manage heat, how to properly capture and retain water, how to provide for renewable energy. They're just building. So you will drive through some communities and you will see houses with all kinds of designs, and sometimes you wonder if any thought went into it. But I'm happy to see that the developers are now placing great thought into what they design. Not just in the housing, but I'm sure I heard Norman say that you will have an Olympic-sized swimming pool, a jogging trail, a cycling track, an outfitted gym, a dog park, all of the amenities required for modern living. Isn't that so, Norman? I was looking for that strong nod. But I did hear you say that it will be built with amenities, which is absolutely important as we seek to build communities. So I'm very happy that this is being done, and I'm even happier that it is being done in my hometown, Spanish Town. Now I know whenever I come to Spanish Town and I talk about Spanish Town, and I read some of the comments, you know, people say, but Prime Minister, you come from Spanish Town and you don't pay any attention to Spanish Town. Absolutely not true. But I do share the view that Spanish Town needs serious attention. The former capital, it has Lovely architecture, Georgian architecture still in existence. The former square, the Emancipation Square, lovely buildings still there. But like much of the infrastructure in Jamaica, it has just been left to deteriorate. And every day it weighs on my mind. The challenge is, of course, do we choose Spanish Town over, Portmore or Linstead or any of the other towns? Because this challenge that we face of aging infrastructure and overburdened infrastructure is right across Jamaica. You could pick any town in Jamaica and the same description would apply. But we have to start somewhere, and we have started. We take note that the reduction in crime in the parish, but in particular in Spanish Town, has led to other investments taking place. This is not the first private housing development that is taking place here. Just down the road, there was a development done by another entity, and that has seemed to be going very well. The government is investing in a new wing at the Spanish Town Hospital, several $1 billion being spent there, and in supporting the reduction in crime even further, we are building a new divisional headquarters in Spanish Town, just down the road from here, and that is another multi-billion-dollar expenditure. So we are putting in place the necessary infrastructure to support development in this area. You may have heard me say that we're going to be doing another planned development in another area in St. Catherine. We did the Bernard Lodge development, which is going exceptionally well. That will give us about anywhere from 10 to 15,000 houses. The next development of that nature will be Innswood, and the NHT has been tasked to develop the Greater Innswood Master Plan. We have applications in for close to 5,000 houses there already. The big challenge would be the road leading up there. That is the St. John's Road, Green Acres, what's it, well, you're going to do Old Harbour Road, but it's St. John's Road, Green Acres, that side. Drainage is a big problem. That area floods excessively when it rains. So we are doing a master plan to widen the road and put in place the necessary drainage so that 5,000 housing solutions can be built. So we are happy to see, nonetheless, that lands in and around Spanish Town proper, which have not been developed, are now being developed. And we see these 221 homes on 36 acres as a critical part of the government's housing plan. I've always said, based upon our last survey, we are short 150,000 housing solutions. We will close that gap. As I said before, the government has committed to 70,000 of that. So I am expecting that the private sector will fill the rest. And I'm certain that the private sector can fill the rest. Now, whenever we talk about housing developments and housing estates, price is usually the first thing that comes to mind. Can I afford it? Is it affordable? The second consideration is location. Is it in a place that is close to where I work? Close to where I can get access to amenities? And therefore, the St. Catherine belt, parts of Clarendon, the parish of Portmore, which should shortly come about, and most important now, St. Thomas. That is going to be the general area where there will be significant concentration of housing development. And it's very important that we take this into consideration, because as the nation moves towards tackling this issue of productivity, productivity is not just about how hard we work, but productivity is about how smart we plan our infrastructure. So yes, people want to build all over and then expect the government to bring water to where they build, or to bring roads to where they choose to build. That don't make sense. Because the notion is that, well, I choose to go and build way up on a hill and then expect the government to carry the water and the road way up on the hill. And the idea is government must do it. But how does the government do it? The government does it by your tax dollars. So we have to start thinking smartly now. Should we take tax dollars to carry water and road, go way out, when right here we have land and we have people seeking housing to live in? Where is the most efficient, where is the most economical place to deploy the limited resources of the government? So we have to start to think about how we spatially develop the country. Should we allow people to just go and capture land anywhere and build anywhere? Or should the government be strategic in putting in place infrastructure to support housing in proximity to economic activity that generates more taxes to build more infrastructure? These are the hard questions that governments must contend with. But as I read some of the faces, I'm certain there are people here who are not convinced, who are of the view that government must carry resources come anywhere I choose to live. And that's where the politics comes in. And that has been the politics that has destroyed our country. Because as a people, sometimes we refuse to think in an economistic way, not absorbing in our thoughts the cost of our actions. Unplanned, sporadic development has a significant economic cost on the productivity of the country. And what this administration is to change that. What we want to do is to manage the spatial development of the country such that the deployment of our limited resources yields the highest returns. So we are focusing on fixing roads all across the country because the road communities. It is not in the country's interest, and it is not in the interest of those persons who seek to go and live in unplanned communities. So government policy is evolving to control the development of unplanned communities. And you would see that, first of all, in the supportive strategies. We are increasing titling, making it easier for Jamaicans to get titling through various methodologies, and that has been working very well. And we are increasing our housing output. Almost every week, I'm either breaking ground or handing over housing solutions to the Jamaican people. Because what needs to happen is that the formal market that provides housing needs to be more efficient more productive, and be actually turning out more solutions than the informal market for unplanned housing developments. That's basically, that has to be the strategy. We need to build more houses at prices that people can afford to make it uneconomical for persons to go and squat and capture land. Basically, that has to be the strategy. And that strategy is working. So Norman, thank you for putting an additional 231 units that will be affordable and, of course, of high standard, so that if somebody was passing that 36 acres and say, you know what, I don't see anybody doing anything with it, I'm going to put up my 2 pieces of zinc and start to capture it. They won't bother with that again. And I therefore throw out a challenge to our developers that there isn't only profit in building these fancy homes. We need to innovate and use the technology that exists to bring homes that the person who can't afford the 19, 20, and $25 million solution. We need to bring solutions for people who can afford the 5 and the 10 million. I throw that challenge out to the private sector. Building technology is rapidly improving. Government will partner with you in providing the land. Come with the housing solution at the price points that the average Jamaican can get access to housing, because that really is the crux of the matter. If someone who is confronted with this issue of not having anywhere to live, and having looked in the housing market, they don't see something that suits them, then the only other choice for them is to, somebody come to them and say, hey, I know a piece of land over here. They don't own it. They don't have any title to it. What they are doing is to capture it. We give it a nice name called adverse possession. And they go and cut it up, and then people go on it and they try. Some people put up a little zinc structure, others go and dig their foundation and they put 1 block and 2 blocks and they start. And before you know it, an entire community is there. Not properly planned out, no way to get them water, no way to collect their garbage. They hide from the rest of the community, and they don't want anybody to know what's happening there. And then 10 years pass, state doesn't intervene, community becomes established, and then they turn up at the parish council to ask for the road to be repaired. They want their titles, they want their water. The state didn't know about it, or maybe the state did and did nothing. That kind of development has to stop. But this is not saying that the people who went and did it didn't have a legitimate expectation to have housing. So in as much as we said that must stop, we are also saying government must move quickly to provide solutions to these ambitious people who are looking for housing solutions. And therefore, a part of the 70,000 houses that we are building will be housing solutions that are catering to what we call low income or affordable housing. And so, Norman, I'm challenging you as you build these solutions. And I see other developers here, Ripton developers. I'm challenging you. Get involved in the affordable housing sector. Help us to provide housing for the Jamaican who is struggling to find a house but can't afford the $20 million. Maybe can do the $10 million with a mortgage support. Help us to bring in these solutions so we can have organized communities. That's the critical thing right here now. Organized communities. The more communities are organized, the greater will be the productivity of the people. Jamaica has the 3rd lowest productivity in this region. and it is not a mystery. If you as a worker have to get up before daylight, catch water, to do your domestic works, and then walk from up the hill, come down in mud to reach the road, change your shoes. By the time you reach, you're tired. Stand up and wait for intermittent transportation because no bus route, no taxi was planned for that area, no water was planned for that area, no road was planned for that area. By the time you reach work, you're cross, angry, miserable. Affects customer service and productivity. And then the boss said, look, we have to work late. You say, what? How am I going to get back home? You see how our development, our housing affects our output as a people. So we have to contend with these things as a country. And I make these presentations, I go through these details all the time because every audience I get, I have to reason with you to point these things out. Hopefully, it will stick in your minds and it will get into conversations when you go home and you will reach other people and we begin to change the way in which we think about how we develop our country. So the idea of housing is connected to productivity. I'm certain that the people who will occupy these homes will be highly productive just by the fact that they will have access to proper water, proper access on roads, garbage collection, and a house that is well designed. Their children will do better in schools. They will lead a healthier life. And that's what we want for every Jamaican. This is not to exclude anyone. I would love this for all Jamaicans. And that is what we are working to achieve. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Andrew Holness Housing Lecture. It was my great pleasure to have addressed you. And before I close, I must comment on the mayor, who is quite informally dressed in his Argentinian t-shirt. I am not going to comment on his chances, but it is the World Cup season, and I too am looking forward to the matches. Everyone knows I am a Germany fan. Who knows? Maybe this year, I don't know, maybe. But Argentina and France do stand good chances. And of course, almost all Jamaicans support Brazil. So we are rooting for Brazil. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Can we give him another round of applause? And we're grateful for the mini MBA on housing developments. So at this time, we are here for the official groundbreaking. As I look across and I see some young people, some students in the audience, and they may not even recognize it now, but years from now, they will look back and know that they were a part of the naming of Featherbed Boulevard. They were a part of the groundbreaking at Featherbed Boulevard. And who knows, one of them could be delivering the next mini MBA on housing development as Prime Minister of Jamaica. That's how dreams happen. So ladies and gentlemen, it's that time. And we are on a construction site. I know my shoes do not reflect that, but others do. And I'm going to welcome the persons who will be a part of this groundbreaking, and of course, safety matters. So I'd like to welcome at this time Milea Matendra Clark, who is the principal architect of these inspired homes. Milea, who will be a part of the groundbreaking. Dr. Wheatley, Charlotte Ann Hales, Deputy Chairman of ARC. Calendar straight to the... And this lady is our architect. Please give her a round of applause. Designer of these inspired homes. She's joined by Dr. Wheatley, also Deputy Chairman of the ARC Group, and Hales. Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness will join them. And next to him will be Mr. Norman Horn, Chairman of the Art Group, joined by Mrs. Ashley Ann Horn, who is Managing Director of Art Properties, Mr. Yuchin Teo. Today, as we celebrate the breaking of ground, and today is not just the breaking of ground, today is the opening of dreams. Today, we give Jamaicans an opportunity to own that place, that home, that they will be able to hand down to generations, that place that they know that nobody can come take them out of, because NCB will ensure that, and FGB. Ladies and gentlemen, as our groundbreakers hold on to their shovels, I know the Prime Minister knows this move. He has broken quite a bit of ground. So ladies, we'll have to put our feet on the shovel, get that shovel down in the ground, because we're going to break ground. I see Maureen has been doing some gardening. Yes, farming. So ladies and gentlemen, together, as we scoop up some of this soil, representing our Jamaican people, on the count of 3. 3, 2, 1. Together, ground is broken at Wick Hall Homes here on Featherbed Boulevard. Another round of applause for the ARC Properties, our Prime Minister, our MP, our Councillor. We look forward to Jamaicans residing in these inspired homes from Ultra Homes at Featherbed Boulevard. Thank you very much.